Victoria is to become the first state or territory in Australia to introduce a treaty to Parliament which, if passed, will create a new Indigenous council. It's been a decade-long process, but the opposition says the government's trying to force through its own version of the voice to Parliament.
The first of its kind in Australia, a historic treaty agreement in Victoria.
It puts into law the changes that will give Aboriginal people a say in how services and programs that are for Aboriginal Victorians are run.
It has been almost a decade-long process to have this bill brought to Parliament. In 2016, Victorian First Peoples started the call for a treaty, and in 2019 elections were held to establish the First Peoples Assembly of Victoria. This was a body to oversee the treaty process.
There needs to be change, and that's what this treaty agreement and this bill will deliver.
This new Indigenous Council would expand on the First Peoples Assembly. It will have 33 elected representatives and a budget of around $70 million each year.
Government must speak with us when making laws, rules or policies about us. But decisions about us are only as good as the mechanisms that uphold them. That's why we will establish a new Outcomes Commission called Nyingma Nyanyawara to provide independent oversight and accountability for government. This is required in the national agreement to close the gap.
Some of the key aspects of the bill include the ability to make decisions and rules about specific matters that directly impact First Peoples, be consulted by government departments on laws and policies affecting First Peoples, lead ongoing truth-telling and healing across Victorian towns and regions, lead the Aboriginal Community Infrastructure Fund, Victorian Aboriginal Honour Roll and NAIDOC Week.
It will be a requirement under law for governments, for agencies, for departments to not just listen but actively consult and then be held to account for the decisions they've made, for the outcomes that are being driven. And the Minister went to this in terms of how this approach that has been used for decades and decades in countries around the world, that this has been identified by the Productivity Commission as the best mechanism to close the gap.
The Greens showing full support for the bill.
Today is a historic day. It is something to celebrate and something that all Victorians can be proud to be a part of.
But when asked if this is simply the failed voice referendum under a different name...
No, it's not. It is a treaty, and this is exactly what First Peoples have been calling for, is a treaty with the state of Victoria. It means self-determination for Aboriginal communities.
No, this is certainly making sure that our Indigenous partners have a say.
The opposition has criticised the move by the government to introduce this bill for a treaty. They say that this legislation is rushed and the government's priorities should be elsewhere. The opposition leader also referencing the failed voice referendum from 2023, saying this is just Victoria's version.
It's still a voice to Parliament. The government are trying to put through a voice to Parliament without taking it to the Victorian community.
Georgia Dickerson, Sky News, Melbourne.